Smart Speaking, Introduction. There is a power moving through you at every moment, silent, invisible, unstoppable. It shapes your relationships, your opportunities, your failures, and your triumphs. And yet, almost no one realizes where it begins. Florence Scovel Shinn, one of the great metaphysical teachers of the last century, revealed a truth that is as ancient as it is revolutionary. Your words are not merely sounds. They are spiritual forces. Each time you speak, you set energy in motion. Every declaration, every phrase whispered in emotion or doubt becomes a command to the invisible world. Your words are builders, sculptors, architects of unseen form. And whether you know it or not, they are creating the landscape of your life. Florence wrote, "Your word is your wand. With it, you direct the divine substance of the universe. When you speak with fear, you summon confusion. When you speak with faith, you call forth order." The universe doesn't respond to effort. It responds to vibration. And here lies the forgotten secret of eloquence. Power doesn't come from many words. It comes from aligned words. You can speak volumes and move no one, or utter a single luminous sentence and move a soul. The wisdom you're about to explore is not about rhetoric or technique. It's about spiritual precision. It's about reclaiming the creative authority that has always lived in your voice. The same authority that Florence Scovel Shinn spent her life teaching others to awaken. She showed that simplicity is not emptiness. It's clarity. That silence is not weakness. It's mastery. That is when you speak from inner alignment. The universe listens as if God Himself were speaking through you. So as you journey through these words, remember, the power is not in how much you say, but in how truthfully you speak. Every sentence can be a spell of healing or harm. Every pause can be a prayer. Every word can open a door in your reality. And when you learn to speak as Florence taught, from faith, from purpose, from divine order, your words will no longer echo in the air. They will reshape the world around you. Chapter 1. One conversation can change everything. What if I told you that everything you've ever wanted, every dream, every opportunity, every breakthrough, might be just one conversation away? This isn't about luck or magic or some hidden formula buried in an ancient book. It's about something profoundly real, something already within your reach, the power to connect with others through your words. Picture this. You're standing in a room filled with people. Some whisper softly, others laugh, others speak confidently before an attentive crowd. Suddenly, someone approaches you, microphone in hand, and says, "It's your turn." What happens inside you? For most, a familiar tightening rises in the stomach. The breath shortens, the mind suddenly blank. The words that were moments ago clear now vanish into silence. That moment, that trembling pause between thought and speech, is where so many of life's missed opportunities live. A job interview that didn't go as planned, an idea that could have changed everything, but remained unspoken, a truth you wanted to share, but swallowed instead. We've all been there. The moment when the voice inside whispers, "Say it," and fear replies, "Better not." But here's the truth no one tells you. The problem isn't that you lack ideas or passion or dreams. It's that no one ever taught you how to shape those inner flames into words that move, that reach, that matter. And yet the most liberating truth of all is this. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You don't need the largest vocabulary or the smoothest tone or the flawless sentence. You just need presence, sincerity, courage. To speak with impact isn't a gift reserved for politicians, presenters, or born leaders. It's an ability every human being possesses, and it begins with one choice: to take seriously the power you hold each time you decide whether to speak or to stay silent. Because every word you release has weight, even when you can't see it. Since childhood, we've been taught to speak, but rarely to communicate. We learned to form sentences, to follow grammar rules, to sound polite, but no one told us that words can lift a soul off the ground or bury it deeper in sorrow. Think of a time someone told you something honest, kind and true, something that warmed you or gave you courage when you needed it most. You remember it, don't you? Now think of the opposite, a cruel comment, a careless remark, a joke that stung. That memory still lives somewhere within you too. That's the power of words. They are seeds. Some bloom into beauty, others poison the soil. And what's most astonishing is that we're planting constantly, often without realizing it. We don't just speak to inform, we speak to create. With every conversation, we build bridges or walls, we heal or we harm, we draw close or we push away. So the question is, what are you creating every time you open your mouth? You don't need to be perfect. You need to be real. Because here's the truth, people don't connect with perfection. They connect with truth. They connect with those who dare to be human, who show their cracks, who speak not from a polished script, but from an honest heart. When you speak from that place, raw, present, unguarded, something extraordinary happens. People listen. To speak well isn't to impress, it's to express what truly matters. And when you communicate without masks, without performance, without the need to please, your words carry a rare kind of electricity. In a world drowning in noise, authenticity is the only sound that cuts through. We've been taught that silence is golden, that it's better not to speak unless you have something perfect to say. But silence isn't always a virtue. Sometimes silence is fear dressed as wisdom. Sometimes silence is complicity or regret or loss. Every time you stay quiet out of insecurity, you surrender a piece of your power, the power to transform, to connect, to create possibility. One conversation can heal a wound. One conversation can save a relationship. One conversation can start a project, spark a dream, or change a life, even your own. The line between a realized dream and a forgotten one often isn't talent or luck, it's courage. The courage to speak when it matters most. Everything begins here, in this very moment. This isn't just an introduction, it's an invitation to see yourself with new eyes and to recognize your voice not as something ordinary, but as your personal superpower. Think about it. There isn't another person on this planet who carries your exact story, your way of seeing, your combination of experiences, lessons, and emotions. All of that gains meaning only when you choose to express it. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to begin. It won't always be easy. Your voice might tremble. Your words might falter. But every time you speak from the heart, something inside you grows stronger. Because you were never meant to stay silent. You were meant to move hearts. You were meant to shape reality with your words. So let's begin. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but now. Because if everything you desire truly is one conversation away, what are you waiting for? Chapter 2. Your Voice Matters. Raise your hand, even if only in your mind. If you've ever thought, why should I speak? No one will listen. Or, my idea isn't as good as theirs. Or maybe, better to stay quiet than risk looking foolish. We've all been there. Every one of us has doubted our voice, and when I say voice, I'm not just talking about sound, I mean something far deeper. Your ability to express yourself with clarity, conviction, and truth. This chapter speaks directly to that silent part of you, the one that wonders if your words even matter. Let me tell you now, they do. More than you can imagine. Florence Scovel Shinn once wrote, "Your word is your wand. The words you speak create your world." And she was right. Your voice carries creative power, not metaphorically, but spiritually. Every word you speak releases energy that shapes your reality and the lives of those around you. To doubt your voice is to doubt the power that created the universe through sound, and God said, "Let there be light." That same creative principle lives within you. Now, think back to a moment when you had something important to say, but stayed silent. Maybe it was in a meeting, a classroom, or during a conversation with someone you love. The idea formed clearly inside your mind. You could almost feel it glowing. But doubt arrived first. What if I'm wrong? What if no one cares? What if they laugh? And just like that, what could have been a moment of courage and truth turned into another opportunity lost. The saddest part is that this doesn't happen once. It becomes a pattern. Each time you silence yourself out of fear, your voice dims just a little more, until one day you barely recognize it. You begin to live more to please than to express, more to fit in than to shine. But this doesn't have to continue. You can change it today, because no one else can say what you were meant to say. Your voice is not just a set of words, it is your energy, your story, your frequency. It carries the vibration of your soul. No one has lived what you've lived. No one sees the world through the same prism of lessons and experiences that you do. That's why your voice is irreplaceable. And here's something even deeper. When you speak, you don't only speak for yourself. Your courage becomes a bridge for those still afraid to cross. When you express what others only feel but cannot yet articulate, you give them permission to awaken their own voice. When you speak truth, you free not just yourself, you free others. The world doesn't need more perfect voices, it needs real ones. It needs yours, unfiltered, honest, human. Speaking powerfully doesn't mean being loud, it means being aligned. It's not about dominating others with words, it's about allowing divine truth to flow through you. When Florence Scovel Shinn said, "No word spoken in faith can fail to accomplish that for which it was sent," she meant that words charged with sincerity and faith carry the force of creation itself. So to speak with strength doesn't mean raising your tone, it means raising your vibration. Even the quietest person can move mountains when their words are born from truth. Think of history's great voices, my prophets, poets, thinkers. Many spoke softly, but their words moved centuries. Their power didn't come from volume, but from alignment, from speaking with the authority of their own conviction. Authenticity always wins over perfection. Finding your voice is not a single moment, it's a sacred process, the unveiling of a truer, braver version of yourself. You don't wake up one morning suddenly fearless. You grow into your voice one conversation at a time, each act of expression a small rebirth. You'll falter, you'll hesitate. You'll sometimes wish you'd said things differently. That's part of it. The universe doesn't require flawless speech, only genuine intention. Every honest word, even imperfect, sends out ripples of energy that return multiplied. Notice when you feel most alive while speaking. With whom? About what? Those moments reveal your natural frequency, the sound of your authentic self. That's your true voice. Start there. You don't need to address crowds or record speeches. Begin in safe spaces, a trusted friend, a written reflection, even a conversation with your own soul. Every honest expression strengthens your inner vibration. And when doubt returns, remember this. Your words don't need everyone's approval to have value. Some will misunderstand, some won't listen, but the universe listens always, and it responds to vibration, not volume. Every time you speak from the heart, something shifts in the invisible. A conversation that seemed ordinary deepens. A person who needed to hear your truth feels seen. A space that once felt cold becomes human again. Your words are not static. They are living forces. They travel, they plant seeds, they return as results. As Florence said, there is a power within you that can only be activated by the spoken word. Your voice can heal, truly heal. It can mend relationships that have grown distant. It can close old wounds left open by silence. It can heal the fear of being invisible, the pain of being unheard. And above all, it heals you, because every time you speak your truth, you realign with your divine nature. To speak is not just to express, it is to liberate. It is to reclaim your divine right to exist, to think, to feel, and to create. In a world that constantly pressures you to conform, using your voice is an act of spiritual rebellion. So begin, even if your voice trembles, even if you don't feel ready, even if you fear you'll make mistakes. Because each time you speak in faith rather than fear, your vibration grows stronger. And through that growth, the world around you begins to transform. You already carry something valuable within you. Your story is enough. Your truth is enough. Your voice, just as it is right now, is sacred. And if you ever forget that, remember this simple truth from Florence Scovel Shinn. Your word is your wand. Speak it with faith, and it shall come to pass. Your voice matters more than you know. Chapter 3. The Divine Art of Listening. In every conversation there lies a quiet choice. To speak or to listen. Most people choose the first. Few master the second. Yet Florence Scovel Shinn would remind us that the invisible power of life does not only move through words spoken, but also through words received in silence. Listening, when done with love, is not a passive act. It is a creative one. We live in an age addicted to noise, where everyone wants to be heard, admired, and validated. But the soul doesn't thrive in noise. The soul grows in silence. It is within that silence that we truly meet another being, not their persona, not their story, but their essence. To listen deeply is to enter the sacred current of another person's energy without trying to control it. It is to let the spirit within you hear the spirit within them. When you listen from this space, something extraordinary happens. The other person relaxes, their guard lowers, their truth begins to rise to the surface like light through water. They feel understood, not intellectually, but energetically. They feel seen, not by your eyes, but by your presence. In that moment, communication becomes communion. Florence often said, "Faith without works is dead, and the work of faith is stillness." Listening is that stillness made visible. It's an act of faith that says, "I trust that wisdom will reveal itself through this silence." True listening is not waiting for your turn to talk. It's not rehearsing answers or filtering words through your opinions. It's the art of setting aside yourself long enough to receive the divine rhythm of the other. Every person you meet is a transmitter of vibration. Their tone, their pauses, their hesitations, all are signals from the unseen. The words may tell one story, but the energy tells another. A laugh might hide loneliness. A sharp word might mask fear. A silence might contain more truth than a speech. Listening, therefore, is not about sound. It's about perception. It is the ability to feel what the words cannot convey. To listen is to tune your soul like an instrument of harmony. You align your inner frequency with the divine intelligence that moves through all beings. You're no longer reacting to human noise. You're receiving a spiritual signal. Florence taught that every person is a center of divine operation. To listen consciously is to recognize that center within the other and honor it without trying to fix or change it. Why do so few listen well? Because listening requires humility. Most people are too busy projecting their own stories, proving their own worth, or protecting their own egos. They hear not to understand, but to respond. They treat conversation as competition, yet wisdom doesn't compete, it receives. When you learn to listen, you stop needing to win and start seeking to connect. Think of the rare moments in your life when someone truly listened to you. They didn't rush to advise, didn't glance at their phone, didn't fill the silence with nervous chatter. They just were there, present, grounded, open. That experience feels holy, doesn't it? Because true listening is one of the highest expressions of love. In a world obsessed with being loud, the listener becomes a sanctuary, a quiet temple where hearts can rest. Listening is not a weakness, it is mastery. It takes greater power to still your mind than to speak your mind. It takes deeper confidence to allow another's truth to exist beside your own. The great communicators, the wise teachers, the enlightened souls, they all carry the same vibration, calm attention. When they listen, you feel safe enough to speak your truth, and that safety transforms everything. When you listen without an agenda, you activate a spiritual law, the law of reciprocity of vibration. As Florence described it, what you send out returns to you multiplied. So when you offer full attention to another, you call that same quality of attention back into your life. People begin to listen to you, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it. You've become a vessel of peace, and peace is magnetic. Listening is not only love, it is a strategy guided by spirit. When you listen, you gather truth beneath appearances. You discern motive behind emotion. You sense opportunity within confusion. Your decisions become wiser, your relationships more harmonious, your influence effortless. You no longer speak to impress, you speak to bless. To cultivate this divine art, begin with the simplest discipline. Be still. When someone speaks, quiet your thoughts as if entering prayer. Let your focus rest on them fully, not half on their words and half on your inner commentary. Attention is a form of invisible generosity. It tells the other person, you matter. Then, listen beyond the words. Notice the rhythm of their breath, the subtle shifts in tone, the silence that follows a confession. Spirit often speaks through those spaces. Ask questions that invite truth rather than control it. How did that feel for you? What do you need right now? These open the door for the heart to walk through. And when they finish, resist the impulse to fix. You are not there to correct, only to witness. Sometimes healing begins not in advice, but in acknowledgement. Say, that sounds painful, or that took courage. When you affirm their humanity, you remind them of their divinity. Florence once wrote, words are swords of flame, but silence is the altar where they are purified. That is the essence of listening. When you listen, you purify the noise of the world and turn it into understanding. In the end, the more you listen, the more your words carry weight. Because people don't follow those who speak the loudest. They follow those who make them feel heard. The listener becomes a light others instinctively move toward. To listen is to say, I see the God in you. And when you listen from that place, you don't just hear people, you heal them. In a universe that vibrates with sound, perhaps the greatest act of creation is still the same as it was in the beginning. To listen before speaking, and to let the silence teach you what love truly sounds like. Chapter 4. The Power of the Few Words That Matter. Have you ever been caught in a conversation that felt like it would never end? The other person speaks endlessly, circling around their point, and though you nod and smile, inside, you've drifted far away. You count seconds, not sentences. Now comes the harder question. How many times have you been that person? It's human. We all long to be understood. We pile on words like layers of clothing, hoping one of them will finally express what we mean. We explain, justify, and elaborate until the life of our message drowns in excess. Yet, the truth remains timeless. To speak well is not to say much. It is to say what matters. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote, "Power is given to the words that are quick and sure." She understood that divine law does not operate through noise or repetition. It flows through precision. A word spoken with faith is a command. A word spoken without clarity is an echo. When you clutter your message, you weaken its vibration. Words are not decorations. They are vessels of energy. The more you fill them with unnecessary detail, the less room truth has to live. But when you choose words deliberately, simple, steady, confident, you direct the current of creation itself. Clarity is a light. It turns confusion into understanding, fear into peace, and hesitation into confidence. People trust those who speak clearly because clarity reflects order, and divine order is what every soul instinctively seeks. When you speak with simplicity, you become an instrument of that order. Have you noticed how the greatest teachers speak? They use short phrases that pierce through confusion. Let there be light. Love one another. Peace, be still. They don't explain. They reveal. They don't persuade. They awaken. True communication does not depend on quantity. It depends on consciousness. One sentence aligned with faith can shift a life, while 10,000 spoken in doubt dissolve into nothing. We live in a world afraid of silence. We rush to fill every pause, believing that stillness will expose us as unprepared or uncertain. But silence, to the wise, is power disguised as rest. Florence taught that a person who knows the power of words becomes careful of their speech. When you pause before speaking, you affirm mastery over your vibration. You become the ruler of your word, not its servant. The silence between phrases is not emptiness. It's the sacred breath of creation. In that breath, your words find weight. Your listener finds space to feel, and meaning like a seed takes root. Think of your favorite speech or story. It wasn't the longest one you heard. It was the one that lingered, not because it filled the air, but because it left space for you to enter. The greatest communicators never try to complete the entire picture. They paint just enough for your soul to recognize itself in the image. Simplicity is not shallowness, it's mastery. It means stripping away everything false until only the essence remains. Imagine a diamond. Its brilliance lies in its purity, not in how many ornaments surround it. Words are the same. The more you adorn truth, the less it shines. A phrase like "I forgive you" and "I miss you" or "that hurt me" can move mountains because it comes unfiltered. It's pure vibration, no masks, no excess. Simplicity is what makes the human heart tremble. So how do you cultivate this power of less? Before you speak, breathe. Ask yourself, what is it that I truly wish to express? Find the essence of your message, a single idea, emotion, or truth, and let that guide your words. Speak it simply, without detours. Don't fear pauses, let them work for you. A pause is not absence, it's presence intensified. It tells the other person, "I mean this." It gives them permission to reflect, to feel, to absorb. After each conversation, reflect gently. Was I clear? Did I say what mattered, or did I speak to fill the silence? You'll notice something remarkable. When you speak less, your words echo longer. The phrases that changed humanity were brief. I have a dream. Yes, we can. Faith over fear. Peace on earth. Each no longer than a heartbeat, yet carrying the pulse of eternity. The secret of powerful speech is not volume nor vocabulary. It's vibration, and vibration comes from inner alignment. When your heart and word move in unison, people don't just hear you, they feel you. When you stop speaking to impress and start speaking to express, your words gain sacred weight. You stop talking from your mind and begin speaking from your spirit. Florence said, "Your word is your wand." And a wand, to be effective, must be used with precision. Each time you speak, you are casting energy, shaping unseen matter into form. When your words are few but filled with faith, the universe listens. Here's a simple practice to awaken this mastery. Think of something important you've been wanting to say, an apology, a truth, a declaration of love. Now say it in 10 words or fewer. Feel how the meaning condenses, how the unnecessary falls away, how only truth remains. That's the power of divine communication, pure, intentional, uncluttered, because the soul doesn't need many words to recognize truth. It only needs the right ones. Chapter 5. What you don't say also speaks. There's a quiet truth that lives beneath every conversation. Your body is always speaking. Even when your lips are still, your posture, your gestures, your eyes, your tone, and your pauses tell the story of what's really happening inside you. Scientists say that over 70% of communication is non-verbal. But Florence Scovel Shinn understood this long before psychology gave it numbers. She wrote that the invisible always precedes the visible. What you carry in spirit eventually finds form, and your body is that form. It is your vibration made flesh. If your mind is at war, your shoulders will tighten. If your heart is at peace, your whole presence will soften. Every cell in your body is a transmitter of your inner state. So, when your words say one thing but your energy says another, people believe your energy. They always do. Imagine someone telling you, "I'm open to hearing your ideas," while sitting with crossed arms, a locked jaw, and eyes fixed on a screen. You don't believe the words. You feel the truth underneath them. The body never lies. This is what happens when what you say and what you emanate fall out of harmony. You lose credibility, and without credibility, your words lose their creative force. You could be saying the most inspiring thing in the world, but if your vibration doesn't match, it dissolves into air. Everything communicates, even silence. In fact, silence often communicates more. When someone asks a question and you avoid their gaze, when you receive a compliment but can't hold it, when you disagree but swallow your truth, your body becomes the voice you refuse to use. To become a conscious communicator, you must learn to hear yourself beyond sound. Every gesture, every movement, every breath carries a message. Florence used to say that nothing happens without first being spoken, even if that speech is silent. The language of the body is that silent speech. It's the whisper of your subconscious, the echo of your faith, the mirror of your inner world. Your body is not a costume that you wear to appear confident. It is a reflection of your energy, a physical echo of your state of mind. When you're anxious, you shrink, you curl in on yourself, your hands fidget, your breath shortens. When you're inspired, you expand, your movements open, your voice lifts, your eyes brighten. The difference isn't mechanical, it's magnetic. The body simply follows the current of emotion. Before any important conversation, take a moment to center yourself. Not to rehearse words, but to align your inner state with your intention. If your goal is peace, breathe peace into your chest. If your message is love, let love fill your gestures. If your truth is strength, feel it in your spine before you speak, because you cannot talk about peace while carrying war inside your body. Nonverbal communication isn't something you perform, it's something you awaken to. When you become aware of how you move, how you breathe, and how you occupy space, your body begins to align with your truth. Stand with presence, not with tension, but with rootedness. Keep your chest open, your shoulders relaxed, your hands visible. It tells others, I am here, I am safe, I am listening. Look into people's eyes with warmth, not with control. A true gaze doesn't demand, it invites. Your hands, when moved naturally, become instruments of rhythm. They carry your intention through the air. Even your face is part of this language. When you speak of joy, let your expression mirror that joy. When you share something painful, let your features honor that emotion instead of hiding it. Your tone, too, is the soul of your words. Florence wrote that the tone of your speech registers your faith. And it's true, you can say, I'm fine, in a tone that heals, or in one that betrays emptiness. The difference lies in vibration, not vocabulary. Everything starts with breath. Breath gathers your scattered energy and brings you into the present moment. One conscious breath before speaking can change the entire atmosphere of a room. Because people don't respond to the words themselves, they respond to the energy you breathe into them. And just as you learn to express with your body, you must also learn to read the unspoken in others. Notice how people sit, how they breathe, how they look away or lean forward. Without judgment, simply observe. This kind of awareness is empathy in motion. It allows you to adjust your pace, your tone, and your energy. You begin to communicate not from intellect, but from intuition, not to convince, but to connect. Think of two people in a job interview. Both are equally qualified. One sits with slumped shoulders, restless fingers, and eyes fixed on the floor. The other breathes deeply, sits upright, smiles calmly, and looks directly, not challengingly but with confidence. The difference is invisible yet undeniable. The second person's energy says, I am ready. And that silent message speaks louder than a dozen polished answers. True communication doesn't demand performance, it calls for alignment. To be aligned means that your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions all move in the same direction. Florence called this the law of non-resistance. When your words, tone, and body flow as one, you stop forcing and start attracting. People trust what feels real. They sense harmony even if they can't explain why. Trust, after all, is built on coherence, on the quiet power of someone who says only what they mean and radiates what they say. Long before we learned language, we already knew how to communicate. Babies speak through motion and soundless signals, a cry, a smile, a look. Before words, there was vibration. Before grammar, there was presence. The body is our first instrument of truth, our oldest form of prayer. You don't always need the perfect sentence. Sometimes the deepest healing is found in a gesture, a sincere smile, a steady gaze, a gentle touch on the shoulder that says, I understand. The body has no grammar, but it has truth. And that truth, when born from love, can move mountains more easily than any speech ever could. So remember this, every breath, every silence, every movement is a message, and often the words you never say are the ones that speak straight to the soul. Chapter 6. Speak with confidence. There is one quality that can transform the way you communicate more than any technique, and that quality is confidence. Yet when most people picture it, they imagine the wrong scene. Someone standing under a spotlight, voice steady, gaze unwavering, words flowing perfectly, commanding the room with ease. I could never speak like that, we tell ourselves. But that image is only a fragment of the truth. Real confidence has nothing to do with performance. It is not about dazzling an audience. It is about trusting yourself, even when you don't have all the answers. Confidence is not perfection. It is present. It's the quiet certainty that even if your voice shakes, you still have something worth saying. You don't need to know everything to speak with conviction. Confidence doesn't mean you never doubt. It means you choose to express yourself despite the doubt. And that choice, that courageous act of authenticity, is infinitely more powerful than any rehearsed speech. People don't connect with perfect speakers. They connect with real souls who dare to be honest, even while trembling. So why do we fear speaking? Why do so many people freeze when it's their turn to share an idea, raise a hand, or say what's in their heart? It often begins with judgment, the whisper of what if they laugh? What if I sound foolish? What if I fail? Then comes comparison. That person sounds so natural, so eloquent, so sure of themselves. And beneath it all, old wounds, moments from childhood when someone mocked your words, interrupted your voice, or made you believe you weren't worth listening to. Each of those experiences leaves an imprint. But here's the liberating truth. The voice you have today does not need to carry the wounds of your past. You can rebuild your confidence. You don't need perfection to do it, only practice, presence, and purpose. Confidence is not a gift that a few lucky people are born with. It's a muscle that grows every time you use it. Every moment you speak, even when you're scared, you're training that muscle. Every conversation where you choose honesty over silence is a repetition. The more you use your voice, the stronger it becomes. Confidence begins with preparation, but not obsession. Know what you want to say, not as a memorized script, but as a living idea you can express freely. Over-preparation kills spontaneity, and spontaneity is where your truth breathes. Structure gives you direction, but presence gives you power. When you know your message, you can let go of control and let your spirit speak. Another key lies in shifting your focus away from yourself. Most anxiety about speaking comes from self-absorption. How do I look? How do I sound? Am I doing this right? But when you move your attention from how you appear to what you want to give, everything changes. Instead of asking, "What will they think of me?" ask, "How can I serve with what I'm saying?" Florence Scovel Shinn taught that when you take your focus off fear and place it on purpose, the divine works through you. You stop speaking from yourself and begin speaking through yourself, and sometimes you have to act as if you already are confident, not to pretend, but to awaken that inner state. The body influences the mind. When you stand tall, breathe deeply, and speak slowly, your nervous system receives the message that you are safe. Even if your heart is racing, your posture can whisper to your mind, "I am ready." And little by little, the act becomes reality. Perfectionism kills expression. Everyone stumbles. Everyone forgets words. Everyone says something awkward once in a while. That doesn't diminish you, it humanizes you. People don't remember your mistakes. They remember your recovery. A simple smile, a small laugh, a humble "I misspoke" carries more authenticity than pretending nothing happened. Confidence doesn't hide imperfection, it embraces it. Start celebrating your small victories. Every time you speak when you attempted to stay silent, that's progress. Every time you express a thought, ask a question, or share your perspective, you're proving to yourself that you can. Write these moments down, if you must. Confidence is built not from grand moments, but from accumulated proof that you survived every time you dared to speak. True confidence isn't loud. It doesn't shout to be heard. It doesn't need to dominate. Some people fill rooms with noise and say nothing. Others, with quiet sincerity, can shift the entire energy of a space. Authority is not volume, it's alignment. When your words, emotions, and body are in harmony, you don't need to raise your voice. The world naturally leans closer. And here's something paradoxical. The most confident people you'll ever meet are often the most vulnerable. They don't pretend to be unshakable. They admit when they don't know, when they're uncertain, when they're nervous. But they speak anyway. That vulnerability, far from diminishing them, becomes their strength. Because confidence, real confidence, isn't armor. It's a root. It doesn't defend, it grounds. It doesn't impose, it emanates. Even the greatest speakers still feel fear. The difference is they've learned not to worship it. Fear is not a signal to stop. It's proof that something meaningful is at stake. The body trembles not because it's weak, but because it senses importance. The key isn't to eliminate fear, but to walk beside it, to breathe through it, to move with it, to speak anyway. Confidence, in the end, is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of purpose. When your intention is pure, when your words come from service, when your heart aligns with what you say, the universe amplifies your voice. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You just have to show up, open your heart, and speak your truth, even if it shakes. Chapter 7. The Power of the Pause. Picture this for a moment. You're listening to a speaker who never stops talking, words spilling one after another like a rushing river with no banks. There's no breath, no rhythm, no space between sentences. At first you try to follow, but after a few minutes your mind begins to drift. You're not bored, you're overwhelmed. Then imagine a different scene. Another speaker takes the stage. They speak a single phrase, powerful, simple, and then pause. Silence fills the room. The air changes. You lean forward without realizing it. You're not just listening anymore. You're feeling. That's the power of the pause. It isn't emptiness. It's intensified presence. It's the invisible art that turns sound into meaning. Most people, when they try to improve their communication, focus on the visible, the words, the tone, the vocabulary, the expression. Few ever think about silence. But great speakers know what you don't say shapes the impact of what you do. The pause is not a void, it's a vessel. It carries emotion, clarity, and power. It lets the message breathe. Sometimes an idea doesn't need more words, it needs more space. A well-placed silence after a truth allows that truth to settle inside the listener's mind. It gives weight to your words, resonance to your rhythm. Florence Scovel Shinn used to say, "Your words are seeds. Give them soil." The pause is that soil, the sacred ground where meaning takes root. Pausing also projects calm and confidence. Contrary to what many believe, silence does not reveal insecurity. It reveals control. A nervous speaker rushes, a confident one rests. When you pause without fear, the audience feels your stability. You show that you are not chasing their attention. You already have it. Your silence says, "I trust my message enough to let it echo." There's another kind of pause, the one that creates expectation. A moment of quiet before revelation makes the heart lean forward. The absence of sound awakens the imagination. Think of storytelling. I opened the door and what I saw changed everything. That breathless space between thought and revelation pulls people into your world. The silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of anticipation. And sometimes the pause is not for them, but for you. It gives you time to collect your thoughts, to find the next sentence, not in your mind, but in your breath. One small silence can save you from saying something careless. It can turn reaction into response. It can remind you to speak from presence rather than impulse. Emotion, too, lives in the spaces between words. When you speak from the heart, you naturally slow down. A pause in a moment of truth lets emotion reveal itself without being forced. It allows your listener to feel with you, not just listen to you. In those instances, silence becomes communion, an invisible bridge between souls. So why is it so hard to pause? Because silence scares us. We live in a culture addicted to noise, where every gap must be filled, every second occupied. Silence is mistaken for weakness, hesitation, or awkwardness. But that's an illusion. True power is not in endless talking, it's in measured expression. The masters of communication, the ones whose words stay with us long after they're gone, all understood this truth. Silence gives words their shape. Think of music. What makes a melody beautiful is not only the notes, but the rests between them. In poetry, the white space on the page is part of the rhythm. In art, the empty canvas surrounding a brushstroke makes the color sing. The same is true in speech. The pause is where the message inhales, where emotion becomes human. When you pause after something meaningful, you allow your listener to meet you in thought. The silence says, "This matters." When you pause before something powerful, you invite them into suspense. The silence says, "Pay attention." And when you pause simply to breathe, you remind yourself that communication is not a performance, it's a flow. In a world obsessed with speed, the pause is rebellion. It's grace, it's respect, for your listener, for your message, for your own rhythm. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that divine timing governs all things. The pause honors that timing. It says, "I am not rushing, I trust the unfolding." It turns communication into communion, a dance between words and silence, between speaker and listener, between expression and understanding. The pause is not a trick, it's a form of truth. It's the breath between creation and manifestation, between thought and sound. Without it, everything blurs. With it, every word shines. So the next time you speak, remember, not every moment needs to be filled. Let your words travel with the rhythm of your breath. Let silence walk beside them. Because in the end, it is not how much you say that leaves a mark. It's the spaces you dare to leave unspoken. Chapter 8. Stories that leave a mark. Close your eyes for a moment and try to remember. Not a fact, not a lecture, not a data point, but a story. Maybe someone told you years ago, maybe a memory from childhood, maybe a small moment that still feels alive somewhere inside you. Can you see it? Feel it? That's because stories don't travel through the mind. They travel through the heart, and the heart never forgets. To speak well is to know how to tell a story. You can fill a speech with dazzling facts, perfect logic, and elegant phrasing, but if it doesn't make someone feel, it will vanish the moment it ends. A good story, however, lodges itself in the soul. It outlives the moment of its telling. It becomes part of the listener's own internal landscape. Storytelling is not decoration, it's a sacred tool. It's how humanity has always shared wisdom. It's how we've passed down courage, love, and faith across generations. A story reaches where logic cannot. It makes people see what numbers cannot show. It makes them believe, not because you proved something, but because you made them feel it. You don't need to have climbed mountains or survived wars to have a story worth telling. The most powerful stories often rise from ordinary moments. A failure that taught you something about yourself, a conversation that changed your direction, a quiet realization on an unremarkable afternoon. The divine hides in simplicity. Florence Scovel Shinn often said that every event in life carries a message, if only you have the eyes to see and the courage to speak it. Storytelling begins with that vision, with the decision to look at your own life as meaningful, no matter how small the moments appear. What makes a story truly connect? It isn't perfection or polish, it's truth. Authenticity is the pulse of every story that lasts. Speak as you lived it. Uncertain, flawed, emotional, human. People don't connect with heroes, they connect with honesty. They don't need your glory, they need your truth. Emotion gives that truth color. Don't just say you were sad, describe the silence that followed. Don't just say you were happy, describe how the world seemed to glow for a second. Details breathe life into your story because they awaken the senses. And when the senses awaken, the heart opens. Every memorable story also carries transformation. There must be a before and after, a moment where something shifted. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It might be as simple as realizing that you've been living on autopilot, or discovering that forgiveness feels lighter than resentment. That's the essence of storytelling, a soul moving from one state of being to another. The listener may not have lived your story, but they will recognize that movement within themselves. Connection is the bridge. A good story allows the listener to see themselves reflected in it. They don't need to share your circumstances to share your emotions. Fear, hope, doubt, love. These are universal languages. The more honestly you express them, the more universally you'll be understood. If you want a structure, think of what every story, ancient or modern, has in common. It begins with a world before the change. I thought I knew who I was. Everything was predictable. Then something happens. One day, something broke my routine. A challenge appeared, a door opened. Then comes the transformation. Through that experience, I discovered something new about myself. And finally, the reflection. Now I see that fear was my teacher, not my enemy. The magic of storytelling isn't in the form, it's in the awareness. When you tell your story consciously, you give meaning to what once felt random. You reframe your past, not as a sequence of accidents, but as a spiritual curriculum. Florence would call this the law of substitution, transforming old patterns of thought by giving them new purpose. When you tell your story with truth and love, you rewrite your past into wisdom. You can use a story almost anywhere, to begin a speech and capture attention, to clarify a complex idea, to teach through lived experience, to inspire change, or simply to connect on a human level. A well-told story doesn't replace your message, it anchors it in emotion, turning information into transformation. You don't have to be a great orator to tell a great story. You only need to speak from your heart. Many people avoid storytelling because they think they lack charisma or talent. But storytelling isn't performance. It's honesty spoken with presence. When you stop trying to impress and start trying to express, the story tells itself. There are, of course, small traps to avoid. Don't stretch your stories too long. Say only what serves the moment. Don't strip them of emotion by over-explaining. Feel what you're saying and let that feeling carry your words. Know the purpose. Before you speak, ask yourself, what do I want this story to awaken in others? And don't hide behind perfection. Share not only your triumphs, but your cracks, your doubts, your mistakes. That's where people recognize themselves. Let me give you a simple example. I remember the first time I had to speak in front of a group at university. My hands were shaking, my throat was dry, and my mind was a blur. I stumbled through a paragraph and sat down, convinced I had failed miserably. After class, a quiet girl approached me and said, "Thank you for reading. You made me feel less alone." That moment changed me. I realized that the goal of speaking isn't to impress, it's to connect. Sometimes your trembling voice is exactly what someone needs to hear. That's the secret. Storytelling isn't about showing strength, it's about showing soul. When you share a part of yourself, you give others permission to do the same. You help them remember their own courage, their own light. And as you tell your stories, something else happens. You heal. You put words where before there was confusion. You bring order to chaos. You turn pain into meaning. You give your past a purpose. Every story told with truth becomes a small act of redemption. You realize that your experiences were never random. They were the material of your message. To tell your story is to stand in your power. To listen to someone else's is to honor their journey. And when we share those stories with authenticity and presence, we build bridges where walls once stood. We stop trying to prove we're perfect and start remembering that we're all connected by the same invisible thread of experience. So speak your truth, tell your stories, not because they are extraordinary, but because they are yours. And when spoken with heart, even the smallest story can leave a mark that lasts forever. Chapter 9. How to handle difficult conversations. We've all faced them. Those conversations that keep us awake at night. The ones we rehearse 100 times in our mind but never quite begin. The ones we postpone because we know that once they start, something might break or something might change forever. These are the conversations we fear because they matter. They touch sensitive ground, where emotions are raw, truth is heavy, and a single misplaced word can widen the distance between two hearts. Yet beneath the discomfort lies something sacred, the possibility of understanding, healing, and liberation. Florence Scovel Shinn would remind us that every challenge is a chance to bring divine order into chaos. Difficult conversations, when faced with consciousness, become instruments of that order, a way to restore harmony where fear has created separation. There are many kinds of difficult conversations: telling someone they hurt you, asking for forgiveness, setting a boundary with someone who crosses it, admitting a mistake, saying no when you've spent your life saying yes, talking about money, illness, faith, death, or love. The topics that reveal our deepest vulnerabilities. These are not just exchanges of words, they are spiritual crossroads. Avoiding them doesn't make the tension disappear. It buries it. And what we bury festers. What we silence still speaks through distance, resentment, or unspoken sadness. To speak, then, even when it shakes, is an act of healing. A difficult conversation, handled with truth and love, is not about winning. It's about freeing both souls from misunderstanding. The goal is not to prove yourself right, but to build a bridge strong enough for truth to cross. Before entering such a conversation, pause. Prepare your inner world. Florence would say, never speak while in the vibration of fear. You must first calm your spirit before you attempt to calm another. Ask yourself, what do I truly want to create through this exchange? Do I wish to attack or to understand? To punish or to restore? Speak not from your wound, but from your wisdom. Speaking while emotionally unprepared is like trying to sail through fog. You lose your way and collide without meaning to. Be clear about your intention. Do you want to express what you feel? Set a limit, find a resolution. Heal a silence that has lasted too long. Clarity brings light to the path. Without it, both of you wander in the dark. Also, choose the right moment. Don't attempt deep dialogue in the heat of anger or in a setting that invites distraction. Truth needs stillness to take root. A quiet space and a calm spirit create fertile ground for understanding. Then, enter the conversation wearing empathy like armor. Empathy does not mean agreement. It means listening beyond your perspective. When you listen not to reply but to understand, you disarm the ego. You open a sacred space where the heart can finally be heard. Let the other person speak without interruption. Resist the urge to correct, defend, or interpret. Sometimes the simple act of being heard is enough to dissolve hostility. When you do speak, choose words that heal, not wound. Replace accusation with authenticity. Instead of, you always ignore me, say, when that happens, I feel invisible. Instead of, you never listen, try, I'd love if we could talk more openly about this. Words shaped by ego divide. Words shaped by awareness unite. And accept that understanding doesn't always mean agreement. The purpose of truth is not to erase differences, but to bring light to them. Two souls can see the same event through different eyes and still honor each other's truth. The real victory is not sameness, it's mutual respect. Speak calmly, even if the other cannot. Your composure becomes a lighthouse in the storm. If they raise their voice, let your breath be your boundary. If they lose control, let your stillness remind them that peace is possible. Florence said, when you keep your vibration high, discord cannot reach you. You are not responsible for their reaction, only for your own alignment. If emotions rise too high, pause. It is wisdom, not weakness, to say, I'd like to continue this when we're both calm. Stepping back is not retreat. It's respect for the sacredness of communication. Words said in anger carry energy that lingers. Choose peace over impulse. And when the other person cannot meet you there, when they close, shout, or wound, remember, you can't control another's consciousness. You can only protect your own. Set boundaries with grace. You might say, I want to talk, but not in this tone. I'm here when we can speak with kindness. That simple line carries dignity, and dignity is the highest form of self-respect. Because in truth, a difficult conversation is not only about them, it's about you. It reveals your capacity to hold truth without breaking, to remain loving while being honest, to stay centered while standing firm. These moments test not your words, but your energy. They ask, can you be a vessel for truth and love at the same time? When approached with consciousness, difficult conversations become sacred rituals. They clear the air between souls. They transform confusion into clarity, distance into understanding. They are portals through which relationships evolve. Imagine Anna, who had grown resentful toward her colleague Sophia. She felt dismissed and unseen, But instead of confronting her in anger, she waited until she was centered. When they finally spoke, Anna said, "I value what we build together, but lately I've felt that my ideas aren't being acknowledged. I'd like to find a way for both of us to feel recognized." That honesty disarmed Sophia. She hadn't realized her behavior had caused pain. Their relationship changed from that day, not because of confrontation, but because of conscious communication. That is the quiet miracle of difficult conversations. Beneath the tension lies an opportunity for grace. When you dare to speak with respect, with empathy, and with alignment, you heal something far deeper than a disagreement. You restore harmony to the invisible field between you and the other person. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote, "No situation resists the vibration of love." When love becomes the foundation of your words, even in conflict, truth no longer divides. It liberates. So speak, not to dominate, not to defend, but to deliver light. Speak with faith that peace is possible, even through pain. Because the goal of a difficult conversation is never to win. It is to awaken. Chapter 10. The Art of Persuasion with Spirit. Since the beginning of our lives, we've been learning to influence the world around us. A newborn cries, and the world responds. A child learns that words can soften a no into a maybe. Adults refine the art, using tone, reason, and emotion to move hearts and open minds. Persuasion is not a trick. It's a dialogue between energies. It's the meeting point between your will and another's freedom. But there's a line, a sacred one, that divides persuasion from manipulation. Florence Scovel Shinn spoke of it as the line between divine command and personal will. Manipulation bends others through fear, guilt, or illusion. It's the voice that says, "I must take control." Persuasion, guided by spirit, says, "I will reveal truth and allow light to decide." Both may look the same on the surface, both use words, both aim to influence, but the vibration behind them could not be more different. One drains energy, the other amplifies it. One traps, the other liberates. To persuade, in the metaphysical sense, is to align your intention with divine order. You're not trying to convince through pressure or strategy, but through clarity, faith, and resonance. Florence would say that, when you speak from truth, your word goes forth and does not return void. Real persuasion, then, begins not in your mouth, but in your mind. It begins in the quiet conviction that your words are guided by love, not by fear. When your motive is pure, your influence becomes magnetic. People feel it before you even speak. Your tone carries harmony. Your presence itself persuades. You no longer have to force belief. Your alignment becomes its own evidence. If you want to persuade consciously, the first step is to see the other person as divine, not as an obstacle to overcome. The moment you try to overpower another's will, you step out of truth's vibration. But when you honor their freedom, you create a field of respect where understanding can arise naturally. Every person, Florence taught, is a divine center of operation. That means no soul can truly be dominated, only invited. The power of persuasion lies in that invitation, to awaken the truth that already lives within the other. You are not putting something new in them. You are helping them remember what they already know. So how do you do that? Begin with empathy. Before you speak, listen. Feel their point of view without judgment. See what they long for, what they fear, what they are protecting. The deeper you understand their inner world, the easier it becomes to bridge it with yours. This is not a strategy, it's compassion in action. And compassion is irresistible. Then speak not to impress, but to illuminate. Use words that lift, not words that corner. The goal is not to win the argument, but to create harmony between two truths. Speak in images, in feelings, in sincerity. The soul doesn't respond to logic alone. It responds to vibration. Remember that people don't follow words, they follow energy. You can list every advantage of your idea and still fail to move anyone if your tone carries doubt or desperation. But if your voice is steady, your breath calm, and your intention pure, people will feel it. It's not the argument that persuades. It's the consciousness behind it. Florence called this speaking the word. When your thoughts, emotions, and faith are in alignment, your words gain creative force. They cease to be sound and become law. That's why true persuasion never demands. It declares. It doesn't beg for approval. It radiates conviction. Speak of benefits, not superiority. Don't say, my idea is better. Say, here's how this can bring more peace, more clarity, more abundance. People open to what helps them grow, not to what makes them feel small. Your words must serve life, not ego. And always leave space for choice. That's the highest act of love. Say what you believe, plant the seed, and release the result. You don't need to twist or trap. Truth doesn't need defense. Your responsibility ends when your vibration is clear and your message is sincere. What happens after that belongs to divine timing. When persuasion comes from love, it feels effortless. There's no resistance, no pressure. The listener doesn't feel cornered. They feel seen, because real persuasion is not about changing minds. It's about awakening hearts. It's not about control. It's about connection. So the next time you speak to inspire, remember this. Before your words can touch another, they must first align with the infinite. Breathe, center yourself, and silently affirm, my words carry truth, and truth needs no force. Persuade not by power, but by presence. Not by fear, but by faith. For when your intention is pure and your vibration aligned, you won't need to convince anyone of anything. Your words will simply ring true. And as Florence Scovel Shinn taught, when love is the motive and faith is the voice, every word becomes a miracle in motion. Epilogue, the sacred echo of your voice. When all the lessons have been spoken and the noise of the world fades into stillness, one truth remains. Your word never disappears. It vibrates through the invisible, echoing in the corridors of creation, weaving the pattern of your life. Florence Scovel Shinn reminded us that every thought, every phrase, every declaration carries the signature of our faith or our fear. To speak consciously, then, is not just a skill, it is a sacred duty. When you choose words of peace, you invite peace. When you affirm love, you magnetize it. When you declare your good with conviction, heaven rearranges itself to honor your decree. You don't need to shout to be heard by the universe. Whisper truth and it will thunder across eternity. So as you close this journey, remember, the power of creation has never left you. It waits upon your next word, simple, clear, and spoken with faith. Guard your speech, honor your silence, and let every word you release be a blessing sent forth, a divine seed destined to bloom in perfect time.